All right, guys, I do have an update here. It's just some information about Michael McKee and Monique Tepe, the marriage. So, Michael David McKee and Monique Frances Sabaturski, that's the name I have, Sabaturski, who later took the name Tepe, were married on August 22nd, 2015. So, this is their marriage to Mike. Their union turned out to be extremely short lived. They separated after roughly 7 months by March of 2016. Monique initiated official divorce proceedings in May 2017, and the divorce was finalized swiftly by June 2017. So it looks like she initiated the divorce. In total, the marriage lasted less than 1 year. Monique was about 28 and Michael was 29 when they wed, and both were at early stages of their careers. Friends and family had celebrated their wedding with high hopes, but behind the scenes, the relationship unraveled within months. This is a picture of them, by the way. Congrats to Dr. and Mrs. McKee. Notably, McKee had moved out of state during this period. He was living in Virginia for a surgical residency program around the time of their split. This likely meant the young couple faced long-distance strain. While the exact cause of their breakup wasn't made public, court records do not suggest an explosive event or scandal. It appears to have been a relatively quiet parting of ways. Monique would go on a few years later to rebuild her life. She married Ohio dentist Dr. Spencer Tepe in late 2020, and together they started a family. So the couple had 2 children now, ages 4 and 1. In hindsight, this makes the recent tragedy even more shocking. Nearly 8 years after Michael and Monique's brief marriage ended, Michael McKee is now accused of murdering Monique and her husband Spencer in their Columbus home. It's a baffling turn of events given how unremarkable the divorce seemed. Because Monique and Michael's marriage was so brief and they had no children together, the divorce did not involve a protracted custody battle or major financial disputes. By all accounts, it was straightforward dissolution. Monique was employed in Columbus, working at Nationwide Insurance, and Michael was just beginning his medical career as a physician in training, earning under $55,000 a year as a surgical resident. With both parties able to support themselves, there was little need for contentious litigation over money. In fact, the court filings even show that Monique classified her own engagement and wedding rings as her separate property, noting that she had personally paid $2,500 for the engagement ring and $3,500 for the wedding band. This detail suggests she wasn't seeking any financial gain from Michael in the split. The overall divorce case file obtained from Franklin County court records runs about 55 pages, which is typical for the standard paperwork. So you got the complaints, the asset affidavits, and the settlement agreement, etc. And that's in an uncontested divorce. One item listed in the case was a mutual restraining order placed on both Monique and Michael. To someone glancing at the docket, that might sound alarming, but it's actually standard procedure in Ohio divorce cases. This routine order simply prevents either party from harassing one another or dissipating shared assets while the divorce is pending. It was not a special protection from abuse order, but rather a boilerplate measure applied to both sides. In short, the legal end of Monique and Michael's marriage was completed quickly and without drama. There's no indication in the court documents of any unresolved disputes once the divorce was finalized. Each went their separate ways. Monique remained in Ohio, and Michael's career soon took him to Illinois and beyond. Now, there have been a crucial question many viewers have in whether there were warning signs, domestic violence, threats, or bitter grudges stemming from Monique and Michael's relationship. All available information indicates the answer is no. There's no record of any domestic violence charges or complaints involving Michael McKee during his marriage to Monique. In fact, Franklin County court records show no indication of animosity between the two around the time of their divorce. They were already living apart, separated by the time Monique filed, and the proceedings went smoothly without personal attacks. But she did file from a distance, so maybe there's something unresolved there. Family and friends have not reported any history of abuse in that short marriage. Furthermore, Michael McKee himself had no criminal history to speak of, aside from a few traffic tickets in the years before this case. He certainly had no known record of violent behavior. Monique's subsequent life also seemed normal and happy. By all accounts, she and Spencer Tepe had a loving marriage. And then remember, there was that minor incident of the April 2025 911 call, but we've already noted from the brother-in-law of Spencer, as well as law enforcement, that that's not Monique on the phone. So beyond that isolated moment, there were no known domestic disturbance reports involving Monique and Spencer as well. And importantly, this has nothing to do with Michael McKee. It was that other 911 call was an unrelated something that could have happened at the house, but as of now, we know it didn't involve Monique. Let's see. So when we look back at Michael McKee's role in Monique's life, we see no evidence of controlling behavior, abuse, or ongoing resentment on the record. The divorce seemed amicable. They had cut ties and moved on. There wasn't even a need for the two to stay in contact after 2017 since they didn't share children or property. Monique's family has not reported any stalking or harassment from McKee in the years since. In other words, nothing in their known history foreshadowed the horrific act he's now accused of. This makes the double murder all more confounding to those who knew the backstory. So Michael McKee's background after the divorce is that of a successful law-abiding professional, which only deepens the mystery of what might have driven him to violence. He went on to complete his medical training and became a vascular surgeon, obtaining licenses to practice in states including Illinois and California. By 2025, at age 39, he was living in Chicago's upscale Lincoln Park neighborhood and working in his field. There's no record of any disciplinary issues with his medical license, and as noted, no criminal record aside from minor infractions. He even held a hunting license in Ohio at one point, suggesting he was familiar with firearms, but there was nothing alarming or illegal about that. He has family roots in Ohio. He grew up in Zanesville and played football in high school there, yet he hadn't lived in Columbus for years. In short, Michael McKee was not someone on law enforcement's radar prior to this. That makes the question on everyone's mind, why? Why would an accomplished doctor with no known history of violence allegedly drive hundreds of miles to execute his ex-wife and her spouse in cold blood? As of now, authorities have not identified a clear motive for the killings. This case has left both the Tepe family and the public grasping for answers. One theory is a resurgence of obsessive jealousy or anger on Michael's part. Perhaps seeing Monique happy and with a new husband and young children provoked something after all these years. However, there's no concrete evidence yet to confirm such a narrative. Investigators are undoubtedly looking into McKee's communication and mental state to find any hints of grudge. Another possibility floated is that some recent event or dispute occurred between McKee and the Tepes that has not been made public. At that point, though, there's pure speculation. All we know based on verified information is that nothing in the divorce file or their past interactions overtly predict this violence. The Tepe family themselves have called the murders a devastating loss and thanked police for bringing a suspect to justice. They too seem to have been caught off guard that Monique's ex-husband would be the one accused. Police in Columbus focused on McKee only after painstaking detective work. They traced the suspicious vehicle on surveillance footage and found evidence linking it to McKee in Rockford, Illinois. In other words, he was not an obvious suspect from the start because there had been no recent open conflict between him and Monique. Now, as the legal process unfolds, more may come to light about Michael McKee's possible motive or state of mind. Was there long-hidden resentment or a desire to control that resurfaced? Did McKee harbor ill will over the divorce or Monique's new life despite years of silence? At this stage, the motive remains an unanswered question. What we can conclude is that the divorce itself provides little hint of what was to come. It was a blip in both of their lives, brief, civil, and settled long ago. There was no drama on record that pointed to violence, and the lack of any known history of abuse or threats in their relationship is striking. For viewers and investigators alike, this raises a chilling thought. If Michael McKee did indeed commit this crime, something must have dramatically changed or been hidden beneath the surface. As of now, the story of Michael McKee and Monique Tepe's divorce reads like an ordinary chapter that had closed, making the events of December 30th, 2025 all the more incomprehensible. We'll have to wait for the trial and further evidence to understand what really led up to this tragedy. For now, all we can do is lay out the facts: a short marriage, a peaceful divorce, no apparent bad blood, and years later, an act of violence that no one saw coming. That's the most updated facts that I got. I'm trying to keep things moving forward, but I don't want to jump on crazy theories. I would love your thoughts. And guys, if you like the content, don't forget I have a link to buy me a cup of coffee in the description as well as top of the YouTube channel. As always, guys, stay safe.